She was supposed to come home on a Sunday. Instead, she vanished into the middle of the ocean. No scream, no struggle, no goodbye, just gone. Elena Marsh was 34 years old, a school teacher, a wife, a woman who had saved for 2 years just to take this cruise. It was supposed to be a celebration, 10 years of marriage. Instead, it became one of the most disturbing disappearances in modern maritime history. The ship left port on a Friday evening. Bright lights, music, laughter, thousands of passengers, all looking for the same thing: rest, adventure, escape. Elena and her husband, Robert Marsh, boarded with matching suitcases and matching smiles. But by the fourth night, one of those smiles would disappear forever. Passengers later said the couple had been arguing. Not loudly, not in public, just small moments. A tense look here, a clipped word there. The kind of thing you only notice after something terrible happens. At 11:40 p.m., ship cameras caught Elena walking alone toward the back of the vessel. The wind was strong that night, the waves dark and unpredictable. She was never seen again. By morning, her husband reported her missing. He said she went out for fresh air and never came back to the room. At first, it sounded like an accident, a tragic, terrible accident. But the deeper investigators dug, the more that theory began to fall apart. Captain Daniel Reyes ordered an immediate search of the ship. Every cabin, every deck, every hallway. Nothing. The ship turned back, retracing its path through open water. Coast Guard helicopters scanned the surface for hours. Still, nothing. No body, no signs of struggle, no answers. Just an empty ocean, swallowing every clue whole. Officer Grace Tanner was the one who pulled the security footage. She watched it once, then twice. Then a third time, her hands trembling slightly on the keyboard. Because something was wrong. The footage from the exact moment Elena disappeared was gone. Not damaged, not corrupted, deleted. Someone had erased it on purpose. Grace reported it immediately, but before investigators could examine the ship's server, the footage had already been overwritten, forever lost. This was no longer a simple disappearance. This was starting to look like something else entirely. Detective Marcus Hale was assigned to the case 3 days later. A federal investigator, used to complicated crimes. But nothing prepared him for this one. Because international waters don't follow normal rules. No single country has full jurisdiction. No single police department controls the investigation. The ship was registered under a foreign flag, which meant the case could take months just to determine who was legally responsible for solving it. For Marcus, that delay felt unbearable. Every day without answers was a day evidence slipped further away. He started with the husband. Robert Marsh sat across from him, pale, exhausted, and strangely calm. Too calm. He said his wife had been stressed lately, anxious, maybe even suicidal. But Elena's sister disagreed completely. She told investigators Elena had never shown any signs of depression. In fact, she had been excited about the future, planning a new job, planning a family. Nothing about her life suggested she wanted to disappear, which left one disturbing question. If she didn't jump, did someone push her? Marcus requested Robert's phone records. What he found changed everything. Text messages between Robert and a woman named Cassandra, sent just hours before Elena vanished. Messages that were far from innocent. Robert claimed it was nothing, a coworker, just friends. But the tone of those messages told a very different story. Marcus now had motive, but he still didn't have proof. Meanwhile, Grace Tanner couldn't stop thinking about the missing footage. She began quietly reviewing old maintenance logs. And that's when she noticed something strange. The security system had been accessed manually just before the footage disappeared. Someone with crew-level access had deleted it, which meant this wasn't a random glitch. This was an inside job. Grace brought her findings straight to Captain Reyes. His reaction was not what she expected. Instead of shock, he seemed defensive, almost protective of the crew. He reminded her that any accusation against staff could damage the company's reputation and cost people their jobs. Grace felt her stomach turn. Was he protecting an employee or protecting the company from a lawsuit? Either way, he wanted the investigation to move quietly and move fast. Too fast. Detective Hale wasn't willing to let that happen. He pushed the cruise line for full access to crew schedules, every staff member on duty that night. The company resisted, citing privacy policies, legal complications, corporate protocol, but Hale refused to back down. He knew that behind every excuse, someone was hiding something. Eventually, under mounting public pressure, the company released partial records. One name stood out immediately: a staff member who had requested access to the security room with no official reason listed. His shift ended exactly 4 minutes after the footage was deleted. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This was the first real lead in the case. But before he could bring the employee in for questioning, the man had already left the country, resigned by email. No forwarding address, no explanation. Just gone. Just like Elena. Weeks passed. The public grew louder. News outlets picked up the story. Hashtags spread across social media. People demanded justice for a woman the ocean seemed determined to keep silent. Elena's family held press conferences, tears mixing with anger. They didn't want sympathy. They wanted the truth. Robert Marsh, meanwhile, grew increasingly distant. He stopped speaking to reporters, stopped returning Marcus's calls, and then he hired a lawyer. Not the actions of a grieving husband, the actions of a man protecting himself. Marcus dug deeper into Elena's financial records and found something that made his blood run cold. Just 1 month before the cruise, Robert had taken out a massive life insurance policy on his wife, $1 million. Elena had no idea it existed. For Marcus, this was no longer a mystery. This was a motive wrapped in silence, floating somewhere beneath the waves. But without a body, without direct evidence, there was still no case strong enough for an arrest. The ocean had erased the one piece of proof that mattered most. Grace Tanner couldn't let it go either. She began digging through old shift records, searching for anything connecting Robert to the missing crew member. And she found it. A single maintenance request, filed under Robert's cabin number, requesting access to the outer deck emergency door, the same door near where Elena was last seen. Approved by the same employee who vanished. It wasn't proof of murder, but it was proof of connection, a silent thread tying two disappearances together. Marcus brought this new evidence to federal prosecutors. It still wasn't enough for an arrest, but it was enough to keep the case alive. To this day, Elena Marsh has never been found. No body, no confession, no trial. Robert Marsh still denies any involvement. He lives a quiet life now, rarely seen in public. The missing crew member has never been located. Some believe he fled out of guilt. Others believe he was paid to disappear, just like the footage he deleted. Captain Reyes retired quietly the following year. Grace Tanner left the cruise industry entirely, unable to shake the feeling that the truth had slipped through her hands the same way Elena slipped into the dark water that night. And Detective Marcus Hale? He still keeps Elena's file on his desk, not as an open case, but as an open wound. Because somewhere out there, in international waters, beyond any single nation's reach, the truth is still floating, waiting for someone brave enough to bring it back to shore. And until that day comes, Elena Marsh remains exactly where the world last saw her, missing, alone, unheard.